Good morning, everybody. We would like to find out who and from where you're joining us. Can you please type your name and what city and state you're joining us from in the chat? And while we do that, we are going to invite Hannah to walk us through how to access translation for those who prefer this in Spanish. Buenos días. En este momento invito a Hannah para que nos demuestre cómo acceder al canal de interpretación.
Hi, good morning and afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're from. My name is Hannah Hafter. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm based in Boston as an organizer with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. I'm also here with Yadmet, who will be speaking about her experience at the Don T. Hutto Detention Center later on. So for those of you who only speak English, in order to get the English interpretation when we have a presenter in Spanish, you'll click on the small icon of a world that says interpretation underneath, and then choose the room that says English, and then mute original audio. And from there, you'll be hearing the full experience in English. I'm now going to switch to Spanish. Hola, buenas tardes. Para ustedes que solo hablan español, pueden encontrar la interpretación con el botón que dice interpretación y tiene un mundo ahí. Escoge Spanish y de allá puede parar el audio original. Si tienes preguntas y estás intentando de conseguir la interpretación y no puedes, por favor, pongo un mensaje en el chat y podemos trabajar juntos en arreglarlo. So thank you, everybody. If anyone has any trouble with the interpretation, please just indicate in the chat, and then I will be able to work you through it one-on-one.
Thank you. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Hilda Cruz. I am the Inland Empire Regional Faith Organizer with Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity. And I join you from Southern California. We are an organization made up of various faith traditions who believe that all people are sacred across bars and borders. And I'm grateful that we can all gather today. If you haven't already, please put your name and what city and state you're joining us from in the chat box. In this way, we know who's present at this moment. If you have any technical difficulties, please share it on the chat box and somebody will be able to respond to you. In the midst of continued social distancing, it is fortunate that we can gather via Zoom this season of holy days. Our Jewish friends are celebrating the Jewish Passover this week. Christians are celebrating Holy Week. In 10 days, Muslims begin Ramadan. And as a Catholic woman, I am commemorating today as Holy Friday. We welcome people of all faiths and those with no faith to this prayer service, where we will collectively pray for the liberation of all who are in prison and detained. We also pray and call for President Biden, Vice President Harris, and the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas to take decisive action in the ending of immigrant detention and to begin with these 10 facilities you see on the screen. For the past 7 years, I have been involved in leading a Holy Friday prayer vigil in front of the Adelanto Detention Center in California. And just like what we do here, faith communities across the country are also involved in visitation, raising bonds, supporting family members whose loved ones have been detained, sponsoring people to be released, accessing transportation for them, doing post-release accompaniment, which means providing sometimes housing and leading prayer vigils, just like today, to draw attention and call for the release and foreclosures. I pray that many of you today will get involved in these campaigns to close down other detention centers across the U.S. Today, you will hear from 4 of the 200 facilities that exist in the U.S. It is our hope that through this prayer service, we will collectively lift up the lived experiences of directly impacted people as we accompany them in their journey and renew the commitment of all of us to ultimately end detention. Today's vigil was organized by our organization, Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity, along with Church World Service, the Universalist Unitarian Service Committee, American Friends Service Committee, and Detention Watch Network. So let us center ourselves with music and begin our prayer service. Charles Joseph.
Ula to all. Ula is good life in Fijian. My name is Charles Joseph. I'm with Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity as a spiritual activist and musician and artist also. I was in Mesa Verde for 11 months, and so this, I know the struggle. Personally, I lived it. And this song I'm gonna sing is a song, the lyrics, it will paint a picture of what it is and how it feels like, you know. And I send this out to my brothers and sisters still detained and fighting for liberation. The music to this song was composed by a brother of mine who also was in the incarcerated system and actually created the music while he was in there. His name is Devita Sitani. He's in the LA region and he works with at-risk youth, you know, mentoring them. I do this the best way I know how. Hope you guys enjoy. Sitting alone, locked down behind this cold wall. Far from where you might hear my call. No light in sight, fire burning. Nights feel like I'm losing my life slow. Waiting for the moment, open up these doors so I can feel your light glow. Star bright, shining your light. Been long, ain't seen you shine. So long, so long, so long. Can't wait to find my way home. Star bright. Sitting alone, locked down behind this cold wall. Far from where you might hear my calls. No light in sight, fire burning. Nights feel like I'm losing my life slow. Waiting for the moment, open up these doors so I can feel your light glow. Star bright, shining your light. Been long, ain't seen you shine. So long, so long, so long. Can't wait to find my way home. Star bright.
Thank you for that, Charles Joseph. And wanted to invite Margaret Hellerstein to come join us. But before that, I wanted to share a little bit about the Adelanto detention facility, which is in the high desert here in Southern California. And it is one of the largest immigrant detentions centers here, with bed capacity for 2,690 beds. That's an awful lot of beds. It is notorious for a pattern of human rights violations, medical neglect that have led to 8 deaths already. The most recent one just last month. If the law that was passed in California, called, it was SB 32, and it was supposed to end for-profit prisons and detention facilities, would have been respected and not subverted by GEO and ICE, the facility would have been closed in the summer of last year. But it did not. And so to hear about their latest wrongful death, I want to invite Margaret Hellerstein to come and share us her this story. Margaret?
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Margaret Hellerstein, and I'm a staff attorney at the Esperanza Immigrant Rights Project in Los Angeles. My client, Martin Vargas, recently passed away after being detained for 2 years at the Adelanto ICE Processing Center. Martin was a 55-year-old man from Mexico who had lived in the US since he was 3. He had multiple health problems, including diabetes, hypertension, hepatitis C, cellulitis, gout, and schizophrenia. His risk of dying from COVID-19 was so high that a federal judge ordered ICE to release him exactly 1 year ago today. Unfortunately, Martin's housing fell through at the last minute and the order was never carried out. I spent the next year trying everything I could to get him released. Each time, ICE denied him on the basis that he was a threat to public safety, even though he could barely walk. In December, Martin contracted severe COVID-19 and was hospitalized for 2 or 3 weeks. We don't know exactly what caused his death, but we know he was hospitalized several more times between December 11th and March 8th when he finally passed. Because ICE took pains to conceal this from me, I didn't learn of Martin's passing until a week later. I had begun to receive calls from ICE in February, letting me know that they were finally considering releasing him. They asked for the name and address of the halfway house where I had arranged a bed for him, and information on who would pick him up, which I provided. The last time I heard from ICE, at the end of February, they told me he was recovering from successful surgery and would be released as soon as he was medically stable. I emailed the halfway house letting them know to expect him. I also made sure that Esperanza's driver would be ready to pick up Martin on a moment's notice. Even though ICE is supposed to let us know when one of our clients is being released, and even though they agreed on multiple occasions to give me advance notice in this case due to Martin's extreme vulnerability, I knew from experience that I could not trust them to keep their word. On March 15th, I received an email from the ACLU congratulating me on Martin's release. I was surprised and confused since this was the first I had heard of it. I called Martin's deportation officer, who told me that Martin had been released on March 5th. The officer claimed ignorance as to why I wasn't informed and even insisted that he didn't know the address on Martin's release papers. I explained to the officer that Martin was extremely vulnerable and that I had requested to be notified in order to avoid this exact situation. I immediately engaged my network and started making calls. We called hospitals, police stations, and homeless shelters. I filed a missing persons report with the sheriff's deputy. My colleague called the Mexican consulate. No one had heard from Martin. I finally got a call back from the deputy letting me know that Martin's last known address was a hospital in Orange County. I called the hospital and asked if Martin was a patient there, and they said he was not, but that they could connect me with a social worker. Meanwhile, my colleague had heard back from the Mexican consulate and discovered that Martin was airlifted to the Orange County Hospital for emergency surgery on February 26th. He had a stroke on March 3rd, 2 days before he was released. At this point, I had started to understand what really happened. Martin had not been released from detention and into the community. He never left the hospital. ICE never had any intention of setting Martin free. They must have known that he was dying and transferred custody of him to the hospital to escape responsibility. I called the coroner, who confirmed that Martin had passed away on March 8th. That means that on March 15th, when I was begging the ICE officer for information on Martin's whereabouts, he had already been dead for a week. Immigration detention is a racist and entirely profit-driven system. Martin was a real person who did not deserve to spend the last month of his life handcuffed to a bed, denied basic human dignity, even as he lay unconscious. We must take down this corrupt and dehumanizing system for Martin and all of the other immigrants still behind bars. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you for that story. That without you looking into him, we would have never found out that he was really dead. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me and for being here to hear Martin's story. It really means a lot.
So Deb, my computer is rather slow. Maybe we can invite Charles Joseph to begin the responsorial refrain.
Can you hear me? So
Yes.
there is no liberation till they liberate all. No hay liberation hasta que todos son liberados.
Thank you, Charles. Could you do that 2 more times and we could invite people to join along with you?
Sounds good. There is no liberation till they liberate all. No hay liberation hasta que todos son liberados. There is no liberation till they liberate all. No hay liberation hasta que todos son liberados. There is no liberation till they liberate all. No hay liberation hasta que todos son liberados.
Thank you, everyone. I'm hearing a little background noise. Can people still hear me if I talk? Okay. Hilda, are you able to mute?
No, there's something wrong and it's not letting me. My computer is just frozen.
Okay,
completely.
why don't you go off and try to come back in? Oh, there, it's quiet now. Thanks. But you could try to go out and come back in. Thank you for that refrain, Charles. It's my pleasure to introduce Reverend Ron Kobata, who's been a Buddhist minister for 45 years, and most recently served at the Buddhist Church of America in San Francisco. He has held prayers and memorial services at numerous detention facilities across the United States, both detention facilities during World War II and those that are presently in use in Tule Lake, Crystal City, Laredo, Texas, Dilley, Texas, and the San Francisco ICE building. I want to thank Reverend Ron for being with us today and for his many efforts to connect his own experience to speak out for others.
Good morning, Reverend Deborah. Thank you for this opportunity to join in this vigil to close the camps and to share our common concerns about the integrity and dignity of all beings. And so I'd like to begin with some personal reflections of the impact of the World War II concentration camp experience on my grandparents and parents and family. And I was reminded in hearing Margaret's sharing of Mr. Vargas's situation of my paternal grandfather, who apparently was incarcerated from a sickbed. And in the course of being in the camps, he eventually died. And then in my mother's younger sister's case, who I've recently realized probably contracted TB, which was prevalent in the many camps. And so soon after being released from the camps, she died. And then around that same time, my father's younger brother had a mental breakdown, and as a result was hospitalized in the state mental hospital for quite a while. And then soon after that, my maternal grandmother, who I only knew as a kid being bedridden as long as I could remember. And then a few years after getting out of camp, and this is something I was recently made aware of through various kinds of research, that she had committed suicide, which was a family secret. So this whole situation just teaches us that history, unfortunately, does repeat itself. And so this is how I feel this morning, or whenever you're viewing this gathering, will reaffirm our purpose to bring a stop to the insanity that creates camps, that separates families. And so I'd like to, in honor of those who are still incarcerated, and in memory of Mr. Vargas, share this meditation. So we join together in this gesture of oneness in our Buddhist tradition. As the sun shines upon the earth, awakening into growth the seeds that lie dormant in the soil, may the light of wisdom illuminate our hearts and minds and liberate us from our self-centered ignorance. And by this insight, stir us to strive for a life of deeper understanding and enlightenment. May the light of compassion warm and innate humanity in our hearts, that we may truly appreciate and respect the intrinsic value and dignity and integrity of all life. Though our lives are but fleeting ripples in the eternal flow of time, it leaves its unique influence upon our surroundings. May we who have gathered here for this interfaith vigil to close the camps, memorializing the life of Mr. Martin Vargas, guided by wisdom, vitalized by compassion, continue to aspire to develop the person, both ourselves and others, that we may all fulfill the ultimate meaning of life, the realization and liberation of our oneness. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. I take refuge in the Buddha, the spirit of immeasurable light and life, wisdom and compassion. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo.
Thank you, Reverend Ron. I'll now invite
Ahora invito
Hannah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Now I'll invite Kristen.
a Hannah, a Kristen.
Oh, this is Hannah. Yes,
Oh, Hannah, sorry.
I'm here with
Soy
Janet.
Hannah. Estoy con Janet.
Hola, buenas tardes. Quisiera
afternoon.
presentar a Janet. Nos
I would
hemos
like to introduce
conocido
Janet.
casi 2 años. 3 años, desde que llegó en los Estados Unidos, y ella fue uno de los madres separadas de su hija mientras que estaba detenida por 2 meses, y tuvo que organizar con otras madres para salir y para reunir con sus hijas. Entonces yo voy a pasar la palabra a Janet. Ella no quiere mostrar su cara, entonces vamos a poner el video más bajo y ponen. Sí, por acá. Y ellos van a traducir a inglés mientras que estás hablando. Entonces es importante hablar un poco despacio, pero no tienes que parar. Ya es tiempo para empezar. Lo siento.
¿Hablo yo?
Sí.
Bueno. Pues yo soy Janet. ¿Están bien?
Sí.
Ok. Yo soy Janet. Llegué a salir de mi país, Honduras, 30 de abril del 2018. Y después llegamos aquí a Estados Unidos con mi hija, menor de 15 años. Llegamos aquí a Estados Unidos el 23 de mayo, cuando ICE nos detuvo por 2 meses, separándome de mi hija sin mi consentimiento. Solo los detuvieron, cada quien estuvo en su celda. Yo solo la miraba por un vidrio. Como al siguiente día después de que nos detuvieron, ya cuando yo me despierto, miro todas las niñas recibiendo su lunch, y yo empiezo a preguntarle a los policías de migración por ella, por Tamar. Y ya en ese ratito no la volví a ver desde ese tiempo. 2 meses sin saber nada de ella, solo por medio de, a los 15 días de los 2 meses, sí, el trabajador social de ella me conectó conmigo en la detención, y pude hablar con ella como 3 veces nada más en 2 meses.
¿Y estabas dentro de Huddle?
Sí, Ohio. En Texas, Texas. Y ella estuvo en Howard Street, Casa Antigua. San Benito, Casa Antigua. Ahí estuvo ella también. Sí, es muy duro porque en realidad uno no sabía yo qué hacer, porque me sentía preocupada por todo lo que estaba pasando. Y también yo me sentí enferma como a las 2 semanas, de tanto el tamo que echaban las cobijas, esas cobijas que son como de nylon, de polipel, echaban un polvo que me contagió un poco la nariz. Yo pedí una pastilla y el policía de migración me dijo que yo mucho molestaba, así con malas palabras, que yo mucho jodía. Entonces yo le dije, si me va a dar la pastilla, démela, no esté demigrándome a mí, le digo yo, por no ser de este país, porque, ¿y quién te mandó a venirte para acá? Me dijo. Bueno, le digo, si me va a dar la pastilla, démela, si no, no me diga nada, pero no me diga eso. Después, antes de las 24 horas, 72 horas, nos llevaron a un buen grupo de padres de familia, a donde el juez criminal que teníamos que declararnos culpables por haber entrado ilegal a este país. Y el que no se declaraba culpable, lo iban a meter preso, decían, por no sé por cuántos meses o años. Entonces el juez dijo, les voy a dejar libre a todos, ustedes pueden ir a reclamar sus hijos, dice las que traen hijos. Entonces nosotros alegres pero entramos enchachados, de pies y manos, todo el grupo, como que éramos criminales. Después, cuando ya salimos de la conferencia con el juez y todo, nosotros alegres porque creíamos que íbamos a ver los hijos. Entonces le dijimos a los policías, ya podemos traer nuestros hijos. Sí, ya los vamos a traer. Los volvieron a encerrar, pero no los volvimos a ver.
¿Quieres compartir un poco de cómo se encontraron otra vez?
Ay, eso fue bien lindo. Después nosotros en la detención teníamos un grupo de madres que nos organizábamos todas porque sufríamos. Entonces, siempre nos reuníamos todas ahí en la detención cuando salíamos a la hora de recreo o de receso. Entonces, nos dieron un número de que nos estaban ayudando abogados, así a ayudar con la fianza, porque yo no tengo familia acá, solo la tía de mi hija. Entonces ahí yo pasé mi entrevista y pasé mi creíble y pude salir de la detención. De ahí, en ese tiempo, en ese trayecto que estuve ahí detenida, sí pude hablar con mi hija, pero como a los 15 o 17 días. Yo le decía a mi deportador que quería dónde estaba mi hija, le mandaba cartas y él solo me decía de que sí, que yo la iba a ver, pero nunca la vi hasta que salí. Después, esta Claudia Muñoz, que me ayudó con la fianza, gracias a Dios, nos cobraron $1,500. Eso fue por salir de la detención de la fianza. Después ella me llevó a la detención donde estaba mi hija. Y el trabajador social, cuando yo llegué, yo miraba que sonaban las alarmas en la detención. Y ellos bien nerviosos, yo le dije, vengo a traer a mi hija que está aquí. Entonces a ella ya la iba a reclamar un tío que está aquí. Pero como yo llegué, entonces yo le dije, no, porque yo soy la mamá, a mí me la tienen que entregar. Le dije. Ah, bueno, me dice, vamos a ver cómo vamos a cambiar los papeles, me dijo. Sí, le digo yo voy a estar aquí, le digo yo, hasta que me la entreguen, yo me voy a ir de este estado, le digo, porque nosotros vamos para Boston. Entonces me dijo, sí, me dice, está bien, me dice. Y así fue, como a los 3 días, yo la pudiera sacar a ella. Gracias a Dios. Pero Tamara salió bien gorda. Y dice ella que se le caía hasta el pelo, de la misma tensión.
Pues me alegro que están juntas ahora, que están aquí en Boston. y que ella está estudiando.
Ujú.
Tú eres realmente una de las personas más fuertes que conozco.
Sí, gracias.
¿Quieres poner unas palabras finales sobre por qué es importante cerrar los centros de detención de una vez?
Sí, porque los hacen sufrir a uno en carne propia. Los hacen sentir mal, uno se escapa de morirse. Ver que no está peor las madres cuando le arrancan un hijo. Un niño no puede estar lejos de su padre, de su madre, pero ni un segundo. No digamos 2 meses, años. Es triste, yo pasaba solo llorando, deprimida. Bajé de peso y todo.
Muchas gracias,
Sí.
Janet. Es
Ajá,
un honor
gracias.
estar aquí con usted.
Ajá.
Hi there. Is it me continuing or is there's music in between?
I want to allow her testimony to sink into our hearts, and we'll go back to this refrain.
There is no liberation till they liberate all. No hay liberación hasta que todos son liberados. There is no liberation till they liberate all. No hay liberación hasta que todos son liberados.
Hi there again. This is Hannah from UUSC. I'd like to introduce everyone for our next speaker, who is Sheikh Hussein El-Mekki. He is the religious advisor for the Philadelphia Muslim Freedom Fund, and he'll also be our speaker for the Berks Family Detention Center, which, although the families have been released recently, there is a great fear that it will be turned just into another women's detention center, much like Hutto, where our last speaker was held.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, and really appreciate the others who have shared on this really important event. I'll be sharing a prayer in Arabic and in English, and it's a very short prayer, and then I'll give some commentary on that and how that connects to what we are working for in the Philly Muslim Freedom Fund, but also as a whole, is that, and how does this all connect to different things? In the name of God, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. اللهم بحق العرش ومن علاه وبحق الوحي ومن أوحاه وبحق النبي ومن نبأه وبحق البيت ومن بناه يا سامع كل صوت يا جامع كل فوت يا بارئ النفوس بعد الموت صلى على محمد وأهل بيته وآتنا جميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها فرجا من عندك عاجلا بشهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا عبدك ورسولك صلى الله عليه وآله وعلى ذريته الطيبين الطاهرين وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. This is a traditional dua or supplication that was learned by a man who was in prison. And through this prayer that was taught to him in a dream, he was able to become free. And it became known as the Supplication of Freedom from Captivity. And it's recited for any situation, any persons, any peoples who may be suffering at the hands of oppressors, oppressive state, oppressive laws, which prevent their freedom somehow. Now for the translation. O Allah, O God, for the sake of the throne and the one who is above it, and for the sake of revelation and the one who revealed it, and for the sake of the prophet and the one who appointed him, and for the sake of the house and the one who constructed it. O hearer of every sound, O collector of all that will pass, O creator of the souls and their afterlife, send peace and blessings upon the Holy Prophet Muhammad and his family, and grant us and grant all men and women, believers in the east of the earth and in the west of the earth, deliverance speedily in this world, with bearing witness that there is no God except for God, and that his Muhammad is his servant and prophet. Blessings be to Allah and to his family and children, and to all the righteous and pure, and send salutations upon them. Verily we turn to you, God. Verily we call upon you. So help us to reach our hopes and desires and to make our actions righteous. One of the things which really stands out in terms of the issues of not just Burkes, but the disproportionately marginalized many Muslims that are randomly selected, you know, by Homeland Security or ICE officials, and end up in prison or without bail. Or
But Gary, where's the educational stuff? I guess you wouldn't know that. I have to figure it out, but I don't see it
in there.
Yeah, it's
Is it in this document here?
What's that over there?
Someone's mic is. Thank you. Yeah, this is the COVIDian times we live in. Mute your mic, unmute, mute. Happens all the time. We want to abolish oppression. We want to abolish the laws that enable oppression. This is at the crux of all the problem. We can't see these things in silos. ICE is connected to Homeland Security, is connected to the prison industrial complex. And these are all connected by virtue of the laws that enable or are the cause of a person, a family, a mother that gets separated from a child and put into these detention centers. So I would urge us to really remember to don't take your foot off the gas, please. Abolish oppression by any means necessary. We will never stop until people are free. I can't go to pick up and go to somewhere in Europe and decide that, you know what, I like this place, I'm going to be here and I'm going to be able to live here freely and comfortably. And when someone else comes and says, hey, this looks like a nice place and wants to come there, then I tell them, you're illegal, you're wrong. Fill out 1,000 hours of paperwork and jump through 1,000,000 hoops and all for what? So that I can be the judge and jury and decide if you should be qualified to live as a human being. These are human rights that we are talking about. So we want to abolish the injustice that is inherent within a legal system that that causes and promotes injustice and fortifies this carceral system. We stand firmly against that, and we support the freedom of people who should be able to have due process. And this idea of changing from one system into another system is one of the, obviously, as was mentioned, a great fear. So we won't let up, and we won't stop with one location and one instance. We want to abolish the laws which are oppressive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheikh Mickey. There's a lot of enthusiasm of what you shared with us, the passion not to keep our foot on the pedal and to go forward and onward. Kristen, would you like to introduce the next detention center we'll be focusing on? You might be talking, but we can't hear you. Well, we're not hearing Kristen. I would like to go ahead and introduce Reverend Leanne, who Culbreth, who's from the Episcopal Diocese of Georgia, and Pauline is with her, one of the immigrant detainees whom she has supported in the Irwin, Georgia detention facility.
Thank you, Deborah, and thank you to all who have organized this vigil and all who are bearing witness here today to the injustice of the immigrant detention system and other carceral systems. Well, today is Good Friday in the Christian tradition, of which I'm a priest, and one of the most sacred days of the church year. And it's a day that we commemorate the crucifixion of Jesus, the Son of God. And in many Christian denominations, it's a day of fasting, self-examination of our individual and collective sin, and solidarity with the suffering Jesus on the cross, who was unjustly accused and executed. This holy season leading up to today, called Lent, is also one of repentance, of reflecting on our personal sins, our complicity with evil in the world, and to seek change, to take action, to turn around and do things differently and make things right in the world. Good Friday is also, to me, a day of solidarity with all those who are suffering in the world, who embody Jesus's suffering on the cross. So I intentionally focus this day on the suffering of persons who have experienced detention or remain captive in the detention system and in prisons across the United States. So I'm especially grateful to be with you all today on this Good Friday to pray for the closure of immigrant prison camps around the country, especially these first 10, which include Irwin County Detention Center. I began visiting Irwin County Detention Center in Ocilla, Georgia, about 5 years ago as a minister, and eventually became a founder and co-chair of the South Georgia Immigrant Support Network. SGISN is an all-volunteer nonprofit that walks alongside immigrants suffering in the detention system at Irwin and their families through visitation, pen pal, direct support, post-release, family support, and hospitality programs, and post-deportation accompaniment. You may have heard about Irwin County Detention Center in the news last fall after 4 organizations, including SGISN, filed a complaint to the Office of Inspector General with testimony from a whistleblowing nurse at the facility about serious COVID-19 protocol violations, and also shocking revelations of non-consensual gynecological procedures performed by a local medical contractor. And this sparked congressional or federal investigations, congressional investigation, a House resolution that passed condemning abuses at Irwin, and ongoing campaigns to close this facility and seek liberation for all who are impacted by what has happened at Irwin. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But first, I'd like to have you hear from my friend Pauline, who I visited at Irwin for several years and continued to accompany after she was transferred to Texas. She is an Irwin survivor, she's a mother, and she's a dear friend. And I hope she's here and able to share for a couple minutes what she experienced at Irwin. Are you there, Pauline?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. First and foremost, thank you, Leanne, for your support, and our friendship is very dear to me as well. I'm definitely an Irwin survivor. I am very serious about the things that were done, not just to myself, but others as well. Like I said, even if an outcome doesn't help me directly and it can help someone else, I'm still 10 toes down for that. And I'm in a better place than I was, but I'm still seeking mental health counseling, and I'm still trying to get things back in order with my daughter and readjust. It's definitely still a struggle for me, but with people like Leanne and my attorney Vaughn and other supporters, even people she's connected with me in Baltimore, they've been a great support for me, and I'm just thankful. And if I can be a help to any others, I'm there. I'm 100% for it. And I do want to say thank you to the people that care. So that's all. That's my take on that one.
Pauline, what would you want everyone watching to know about the conditions at Irwin, what you experienced in a place like that?
Okay, see, my experience was a little different because I didn't get the bond, or even I wasn't even applicable for anything. Even things that I were, immigration just wasn't budging on certain things. And I spent 3 years there. It wasn't an in and out thing for me. It became my home, literally. And even being out, you would think I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm free, but it's still a struggle. Like, this is really happening. I'm really out here. I have a schedule in there that I'm trying to break out here, and it's very mentally frustrating. I spent a lot of time in solitary confinement because I just don't do well with certain things and people. So I just chose to be by myself a lot. And sometimes I didn't even do anything violent or anything to be in confinement. I just spoke my mind on a matter, or I took up for someone, or I just didn't agree with what was being done and I spoke on it, and I got backlash a lot. So I spent a lot of time in confinement. So my experience isn't everyone else's, but it's definitely traumatic, and it's something that I'm gonna be trying to get over for a long time. So
Yeah. Thank you, Pauline. Anything else you want to say?
no, I just want to say thank you, like I said before. And if anyone does want to reach out to me, even another woman that went through it or anything, I am fluent in both languages and I don't mind. Like, I could use some support too.
Well, thank you for your courage ongoing, your strength, your willingness to keep speaking out for your liberation, for those of other women and also men who are survivors at Irwin. From what we know, there are only 3 women that are currently detained at Irwin. Back in when Pauline was there, it was maybe 300, a couple hundred women there. But there are still, so they have been, women there have been either released or deported, a few transferred because of the ongoing investigations. And that's our understanding. And we have been told that, or heard that they will no longer hold women in custody at Irwin. However, nearby Stewart Detention Center has opened a dorm for women. So we can see how this can get shifted around and not lead to full liberation. And that is what our organization and all of the partners who have been working on the ground at Irwin and other detention centers in Georgia have been working for, continue to pursue, is liberation, lasting liberation for all. As Pauline just said, you can get out and get released, but that doesn't mean you're fully free from the system and its impact on you. So we are working for healing, justice, and lasting liberation for everybody who has been impacted by this system, including detained persons, their family members, children, persons who are deported. And also, I want to mention workers who suffer exploitation and moral injury in the system. and the communities that surround these facilities that have become dependent on a slave economy. So partners across Georgia have been working on the ground, focusing in 5 main ways, and around Georgia and around the country. And thank you to all of the partners who are here. I also wanted to mention that I'm part of Georgia Detention Watch, which is part of Detention Watch Network, and so appreciative of their work on this First 10 campaign. But we're working to break the pipeline to stop ICE from detaining people and filling private detention centers for profit. We're working to close the cages, to shut down Irwin and shut down all detention centers. We're working to free the people, to build a movement across all front lines to release the immigrants detained at these centers and prisons where COVID is devastating the populations, and to abolish all detention centers and prisons, to tell the truth, to hold medical practitioners and ICE accountable for systemic violations and inhumane treatment of all persons in detention, and initiate a truth and reconciliation process for what happened at Irwin, and also to repair the harm, to support all Irwin survivors with focused support for women who experience non-consensual invasive gynecological procedures, including hysterectomies, and to protect and defend the whistleblower who helped expose so much at Irwin and across the country. And this includes supporting mental health care, medical care, post-release and post-deportation accompaniment. We thank you. We hope you can find ways to plug into this with either the Shutdown Irwin campaign or other campaigns that will be discussed at the end of the vigil. This blessings to you all in this holy season.
Thank you so much, Reverend Leanne, and thank you, Pauline, for sharing both your inspiring message and also the call to action. It's such an important time to know what is happening in the Irwin Detention Facility. Pauline, thank you for your courageous leadership, both inside and outside. Really grateful to have your voice here today. And Reverend Leanne, so grateful for the incredible work that you do with the South Georgia Immigrant Support Network and the Georgia Detention Watch. Friends, my name is Kristen Kump. I'm with the American Friends Service Committee, where I have the honor of being the Director of Migration. We have heard just a few stories from 3 of the first 10 facilities that have been identified by Detention Watch Network, and the extraordinary work that people around the country are doing to end detention and incarceration, and to call out the abuses that are happening for so many thousands of people all over. And these 10 facilities are not the only facilities we hope will be closed down. They have been named the first 10 for multiple reasons that include some of the egregious abuses that we just heard like that have come out of a place like Irwin, for some of the dynamics that have been happening in different places around the country, and especially also for the family detention situations that we've heard spoken about earlier. There are so many concerns that we all hold. These stories are heavy and real. And we also know that many of you are connected to your own stories, to stories of detention in your own communities and incarceration. And so in a moment, we're going to be hearing another musical interlude from Charles. Thank you, Charles, for your music. And then have a prayer from Rabbi Lynn Gottlieb to really help us hold all of this in this moment of both our call for healing and the need for liberation. And then we're so grateful that there are more calls to action to come. So we invite you to stay in this space, to hold the stories that you have heard today from only 3 of the 10 facilities that we're uplifting. And also we know that there again are thousands of facilities around the country that we are concerned about, and thousands of people whose lives are being impacted in this moment. And so as we hold that, let's transition now with the time from you, Charles, to have another musical space to process all that we're hearing. Thank you for being with us today.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you. I was gonna do a little more guitar playing for you guys, but I feel like I need to do a chant down. It's time for my chant down, and so I'm gonna sing this song. This song will be done in Fijian. It's a chant, Fijian chant. It's a prayer. The song says, "This is my prayer. I will sing to the Creator and sing His name. Only you can assist me with the weight on my heart that makes me cry out." And this is something done traditionally, always, as any occasion, really. When something's heavy on your heart and you want to pray. So it's actually a prayer in song form and chant. I do this the best way I know how. Ongo na nongu nongu masui masu kanyu sangandre dinasara meu sereta karawa nayada ichio ichio ichi nivu ke au nivu ke au manda ngangandre ngandre ni alongu amai tangiga ongo na nongu nongu imasuka niu sangandre dinasara meu sereta karawa nayada ichio ichi nivu ke au nivu ke amanda ngandre ni alongu amai tangida ongo na nongu imasukanyu sangandre dinasara meu sereta karawa nayada ichio ichi nivu ke au manda ngandre ni alongu amai tangida ongo na nongu masu.
Thank you, Charles. Rabbi Lynn.
It is good to be together. We dedicate our concluding prayer to the liberation from detention of Gabi Solano. May she be free quickly in our day. For Juan Cubias, may he be free quickly in our day. And from the threat of deportation of Hugo Aguilar, may he be free quickly in our day. On Jewish Passover, we hold up two main symbols. We hold up matzah and we hold up maror, and it has been a bitter year. Maror symbolizes bitterness and plagues. It is our custom to name the plagues. Detention centers are a plague, inflicting destruction and death upon millions of people. Just as the midwives Shifra and Pua stood up to Pharaoh to protect children and families, so we rise and name 10 detention centers and demand their immediate closure. Adelanto Detention Center Facility, Berks County Family Residential Center, South Texas Family Residential Center, Etowah County Jail, Farmville Detention Center, Don Huto Residential Facility, Irwin County Detention Center, Karnes County Family Residential Center, Mesa Verde Detention Center, Otero County Processing Center. May all these be closed quickly and in our day. And may the power of this herb awaken us to stand up and keep resisting. On Jewish Pascha, Pesach, Passover, we hold up matzah, open our doors and say, all who hunger for freedom, all who are in need of solidarity, we hold up this poor bread, this matzah, and remember freedom comes when we struggle together, for together we are bound. I recite this ancient Jewish prayer in Ladino, in Spanish, for all people seeking freedom, And with this recitation comes our pledge for our ongoing devotion to fight for freedom until it comes. Este es el pan de aflicción que comieron nuestras familias en tierra de Estados Unidos. Todo el que tiene hambre, venga y coma. Todo el que tiene de menester, venga y Pascua. Este año aquí en el año el bien vinieron en tierra de libertad, hijas fuerzas con sus familias alegres a llevar a Adonai. May freedom come quickly in our day. Amen.
Amen. This morning, a letter was sent from you, your letter, a letter signed by 800 faith leaders and 200 organizations to Congress and the Biden administration to take swift moral action towards ending immigration detention, beginning with these first 10 facilities. Thank you for contributing to that letter, and we ask you to continue to support efforts to lift up this letter on social media. This letter asks the Biden administration to do 3 things. 1, the immediate phase out of those 10 facilities this year. 2, the release of all individuals who are still detained in these facilities prior to closure. And rather than transferring them to other detention centers or placing them in some form of electronic surveillance, to release them home to their families, to communities, to our congregations that are waiting to receive them. And 3, to halt all efforts to expand any current forms of detention, to end all contracts, place a moratorium on any new contracts, and not convert current facilities into any other form of incarceration. So thank you for standing with us, for elevating your voice together to lift up our common values and our moral call to end all forms of incarceration in favor of systems of help and community and love. We thank you for staying on. If you can stay for a few minutes longer, we'd like to share with you some current actions that can be taken around these 10 facilities that we're focusing on. Hannah, I'll let you do that.
Hi again, everyone. Thank you. I have been really moved and energized by everything that I have heard today from you all. And so I wanted to share that we'll be taking 5 to 10 minutes right now for anyone who can stay on to work through this set of actions. We have 7 different things that have been requested of us from the local campaigns to shut down facilities, as well as the first 10 shutdown petition from the Detention Watch Network. I'm going to put a link in the chat, or I just put a link in the chat. You'll see it's a Google Doc that if you click on that, you'll be able to follow all of the links on the slide. So the screen share you cannot click on. The screen share you can see what the actions are, but to actually do them yourself, you'll need to click on the link that is inside the chat. I can also post some of these directly in the chat, and it's also possible for us to send this as a follow-up email, but we wanted to give people a chance to make an offering of action as part of this vigil tonight. So thank you so much. If you have any trouble getting to the actions, just let us know in the chat box.
So Charles is going to play a little more music, and thank you for joining us in this sacred season. Hope you can stay to take the actions. I want to thank our planning team and Hilda Cruz, Noel Anderson, Marcella, Hannah, Kristen, for helping to put this vigil together, and our presenters and our co-hosts. So I'll go back to that screen so you can see that. Thank you and blessings to all.
love that responsibility. I'm gonna play one more time for you guys, because it's real. There is no liberation till they liberate all. No hay liberation hasta que todos son liberados. There is no liberation till they liberate all. No hay liberación hasta que todos son liberados. There is no liberation till they liberate all. No hay liberation hasta que todos son liberados. There is no liberation till they liberate all. No liberation hasta que todos son liberados. There is no liberation till they liberate all. No liberación hasta que todos son liberados. We'll do another one for you guys. Some of you are still clicking buttons and writing things. So the chant, we'll do a chant. I love my chants, and I feel it's energy, this energy from ancient time that's just surging through. And I do this chant taught to me by Remus Langi, a brother of mine who's in Solano State Prison fighting for commutation, and it's the best way I know how. Remus Langi, the lifer, and it's one of my brothers through the journey when I was incarcerated that assisted in my transformation to who I am today. And so I do this for him, and I do this for all my brothers and sisters trapped behind cages. This chant is the bringing of fire, the fire that purifies, the fire that chant down the fire from the volcanoes. This chant is in old Tongan language. I do this the best way I know how. Lamai pele, boya. Lamai pele, lamai pele, boya. Lamai pele. Now tosu, now failong, ia pone, lepua lepoya. Lamai pele, lamai pele, boya. Lamai pele, lamai pele, boya. Lamai pele. Now tosu, now failong, ia pone, lepua lepoya. Lamai pele, lamai pele, boya. Lamai pele, lamai pele, boya. Lamai pele. paone le pua le poya la mai pele la mai pele poya la mai pele la mai pele poya la mai pele la mai pele poya la mai pele now tau sua now fai longo ia pau nei le poia la mai pele la mai pele poia la mai pele. Blessings to all. Much respect, much love to all. I don't know, do I got time for one more? Rev Deb?
Yeah, I wanted to see if Hilda wanted to say something and then you could keep going. They're still clicking.
No, just thank you so much. I see that clicking. I apologize. My internet went down. I wanted to really be with you, but I feel you. Thank you all for accompanying us, for the wonderful speakers, you know, the organizers who made this happen. Hannah, you're incredible. You know, the gift of music, which always is the center of our vigils. Rabbi Lynn, thank you for your beautiful closing prayer. Just to everybody, let us keep going till we end with oppression, till we are definitely free. Thank you all so much for everybody. Thank you.
Definite. Rev Deb?
Yeah, go for it. I think if you keep playing, people are going to keep staying.
We're feeling it, Charlie Joseph.
Want to go?
I did this one for my brother Hugo last night, so I do it again for him also, you know, because his case is dire, and just for solidarity and strength to him. I send out the energy also to him. It goes, do this best way I know how, this Fijian chant. Rongo saka nawe kangu Osadhae mai na tumbuni salu e waka e lolo me sambai lavu me senga e toka me ngirina walu meta sita di meta sita di mesa suwiri da kitaleani Isa wele ya da basara bangiri moni tauda o atamata ausa o da na ba asaraba aungai murimengai madala aungai murimengai madala Bimbi nasedilo vava nahivahu ongo nahivahu ni vanua aula vetango nahivahu ni walua undula kango moya lovina kananongu ito mobuhukea enasinga ongo nai Yanae, nai, yanae, navatuke, wengwangwatu, eva huratu, gaurata hudaketa itiotu, navatuke, Wengwangwatu, eva huratu, gaurata hudaketa itiotu. Much respect, much love to all. These are war chants almost. Time of gathering courage, gathering energy. Pull it from your ancestors, pull it from your creator, pull it from the earth, Mother Earth. Pull it from all the elements. Pull energy, pull strength, have courage, stand strong. So these are chants done usually before battle, before the fight. And this is the fight. This is great fight. We are all warriors. We fight for liberation for all. To the respect of humanity. And there can be no exclusion or exceptions to humane treatment. And it's essential for us to fight for this, because if there is one person without this, then it will spread and it can be us. We must work towards ending it so that it will be no more, so that we can all be free, always, without the concern of falling victim to oppression, now or our generations to come. Much respect, much love to all.